Welcome back to my channel. My name is LaShawn and this is Offset with LaShawn. So we're back for another episode of Offset. Like I mentioned, this is a space that I have created on my channel to allow me to get personal and talk about things that impact my everyday life and what I have learned within the last 31 or so years of my life that I feel like would be helpful for others navigating life. Just a couple of things before I get started on today's video. Number one, I have decided that I think it would be more efficient and more concise for me and just more sensical for me to put these videos on a separate channel. So this is probably going to be the last episode of Offset that's going to be on this main channel. I think just to separate the different types of audience that I feel like I'm going to gain based on the content that I'm putting out, it would just be easier for everyone if I just, separated the two channels. So eventually this is going to be its own channel, and the main one is going to be still about politics and culture and all of that fun stuff. So just a heads up. Also, my cat is going to hop in these videos whenever she wants to. I do not want to lock her in the bedroom for the entire time that I'm recording. So she's going to hop in and out and do her own thing. Right now, she's making biscuits on the top of the couch. So just try to ignore her. Okay. But anyway, let's just get into today's video. So what I want to talk about today is something that has been on my mind for like a very long time. And it was actually this thought process that made me decide to start doing these videos, because I'm like, you know what? I have so many thoughts about so many random things. I want to share them with the rest of the world. So what I want to talk about today is the difference between white girlhood and black girlhood. Now, before I continue, just a little disclaimer. This is just my thoughts based on my personal experience, based on what I have seen around me in my relationship, as well as things that I've seen on the internet, as well as in entertainment. So this is very personal to me. Okay. I know I'm going to be making a lot of grand statements, but I just want you guys to know that this is entirely coming from my perspective and does not necessarily apply to everyone. And I understand that everyone has their own experience, and you can definitely filter what I'm saying to you through your own experience. Okay. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, I grew up in New York City, Queens, New York, and a very multicultural setting. Most of the friendships that I had growing up were primarily Black women, and I had a couple of friendships with women from like a Latino or Hispanic background, but most of my very close friends were Black. And one thing, like looking back now, that I think I noticed with a lot of my Black friends is that Black women tend to be very tough on the outside. We tend to be very emotionally strong. We're very headstrong. We're very we're just very like rough around the edges in a lot of ways. And keep in mind, like I said, I grew up in Queens, New York. So that culture in itself is usually very like tough, very like hard line. You kind of just have to keep this persona in order to like just navigate an area like that, to be quite honest. But yeah, most of my friends were Black growing up. We were all very headstrong women. And one of the things that I kind of valued in myself the older I got was my ability to not be led by my emotions. I always found that people that were super emotional, especially women, were very exhausting and very hard to be in relationship with, because I often felt like I was navigating like a minefield with them when just being in our friendship. So whenever I came across a girl that was very emotional, very like sensitive, very like, I don't know. I didn't like it, because I'm like, you're just doing a lot. Okay. You're too dramatic. You're too much. I just can't help it. I mean, I just can't deal with it. And I noticed that also trickled into how I acted in my romantic relationships. I always prided myself, especially in my early 20s, on being a woman that was not led by her emotions, which meant that I endured a lot of nonsense from men, because I was like, I don't want your actions to affect my emotions. I don't want you to think that like you can't share certain things with me, or I don't want to like demand too much because I'm being too much of a woman and I'm being too sensitive. And I let a lot of crap go, because I prided myself on being someone that what I thought in that time of my life was emotionally intelligent. So that's just a background. So I grew up with a lot of Black women. The type of women that I had close friendships with were very similar to me. Some of them were a little bit more emotional than I am, but still in general we kind of acknowledge that like you can't always be led by your emotion. And it was just, yeah, we were, that's just, anyway, so that's that. So after growing older and moving to Nashville, because even when I was in college, like I went to a PWI, which is a predominantly white institution. There was not a lot of black kids in my college, basically. I still maintain most of my close friendships with the black women. Like I didn't really have any like really close interpersonal relationship with white women. So yeah, again, most of my friends were still black and they still were very similar. Some of them again were a little bit more emotional than I would have liked my friends to be at that moment, but nevertheless we were all still very like rough around the edges in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, so anyway, I moved to Nashville about 3 years ago now. I think at this point I moved in July of 2022, so approaching my 3-year mark here in Nashville. And Nashville is a predominantly white city. Most of the women here are white. There are black people, but most of the populace is Caucasian, which is fine. Like I totally, obviously I don't mind. So I started working at a company and most of my coworkers were also white. And I think for the first time, I started forming really close interpersonal relationship with white women. And obviously I noticed that there was a slight difference in how they acted and how softer they were, for a lack of, you know, being able to find a better word. I found that they were a little bit more emotional, a little bit more girly, a little bit more cutesy, a little bit more like, you know, feminine in a lot of ways. And I remember like thinking to myself, like, why is that? Now, what brings Taylor Swift into this? So this is also some background because I'm just going to jump around here, so please bear with me. Growing up, I never cared for Taylor Swift. Actually, I'm lying to you. When she first came out with her album, I think that had those songs like Teardrops on My Guitar, that Juliet, Romeo and Juliet song. When Taylor Swift first came on the scene, literally everybody, black, white, yellow, pink, green, was a Swiftie, okay? But after the years as she grew, you know, to become a little bit more pop than country, and she kind of changed and evolved with her music, she really lost my attention, to be quite honest. I think the literal only Taylor Swift song that I liked outside of those early ones is Blank Space, because that's just a really great song. And off of her recent album, I Could Do It With a Broken Heart, I think it's just such a random vibe. And The Alchemy, I think that one, I think it's a bop. And I think there's another song on her most recent album that I like. But anyway, I never really paid attention to her until I came to Nashville and I started befriending a lot of white women, and they were big T Swifters just to kind of connect the two. And I never understood why they like Taylor Swift. I'm like, yo, I like her music is just kind of bland. It's very just like la-di-da, some guy broke my heart and now I'm mad about it, cherries and rainbows and girly, girly, girly. And I'm like, I just didn't find any substance to it. I could not relate to it because I'm like, this music just lacks, you know, oomph. It just wasn't there for me. But anyway, so when her most recent album came out, one of my old coworkers at this point, because I no longer work at that company, she was like, listen, just give it one listen. Just give her another chance. Maybe you'll like her. Maybe this album is going to change your perspective on her. And I'm like, girl, I've tried. It's just not going to work. But one thing about me, I love music. I love all types of music. If you see my Spotify, you'll be genuinely confused because there's no genre outside of heavy metal. I just have not been able to get into it. I don't think that's ever going to happen. There's no genre that I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna listen to it. I like to give an album a chance, except if it's like music that I know I won't like really hard gangster rap. I just, not because I don't find it like musically entertaining, because the words and the lyrics and the messaging are just like constant assault to my ears. So I just don't listen to that as often. But even when like certain rap artists come up with music, like if Kendrick comes up with an album, I may give it a listen. If Drake pops up with something new, I may. If Kanye comes out with something, I'm listening to it. But that's another story for another day. But anyways, she was like, you know what? give T Swift another chance. I was like, fine, I'll listen to the album in its entirety. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to give it a chance when it comes out. So the album came out, I don't remember when it was, but whenever it came out. And the day of or the day after, I was working from home that day. And I was doing a lot of clicky stuff on my laptop. I didn't have any meetings that day. I was just doing like work. So I was like, you know what, while I'm getting my work done, let me put on this Taylor Swift album in the background and just listen to it. So I was sitting there listening to the album and actually listening to the words for once. I'm like, I'm trying to see what this woman is conveying in her music and if this is something that I can maybe relate to at this point in my life and actually come to enjoy. And that's when it hit me as to why, and again, this is just my theory, why is it that my white friends and a lot of white women are able to relate to Taylor Swift's music a lot more than like black women? Because I don't know any black women, maybe a few, maybe one or two, that are diehard like T Swift fans. And I think it's because white women are allowed to be, or are just generally a little bit more feminine and able to relate to someone like Taylor Swift and her music, because it's very feminine, very girly, very boy obsessed, very just like soft, and like my life is easy and just like la di da di da. And I'm not saying that every white woman is a Taylor Swift fan or every white woman is able to relate to her music. This is just, again, based on my personal experience and what I have observed during the last like 5 or so years of my life. And I think that's when this thought process hit me. I'm like, that, I think, for me, is a difference between black girlhood and white girlhood. Black women in a lot of ways do not have the space to be as feminine as white women are. And if you look at the difference between even like the musical styles of white artists versus black female artists versus white female artists, the white artists, they're usually singing about things that are, again, very feminine. Like, even think of like Sabrina Carpenter, like her music is very poppy. Even the way she presents herself is very feminine, very like very over sexualized, yes, but still in a way that's a lot more like traditionally feminine, I guess I can say, than like a Megan Thee Stallion. And yes, black women tend to be more, rap artists, and they do have black women that are not all rappy, but the big ones, right, like outside of like Beyonce, if you think about a very popular black female artists, most of them are going to be rappers, and rap music just fundamentally is not as feminine as like pop music or even like country music, which is where more white female artists tend to land in terms of genre. And that does have an effect on how black women and white women, I feel like, exist in their femininity. In addition to that, even when you look at like movies and stuff, it's very rare that you see a black female actress in a very soft and like feminine type role. And this is something that's not like particularly new. Like, I've seen like conversations about this. How is it that like the black woman, especially the darker skinned black woman, tends not to be like the love interest of the main male if there's like a romantic movie? It's very rare that that happens. And I feel like that does have an effect on how young black women see themselves and how they portray their femininity. I don't want to say we're not given a space, but we are not encouraged to be super emotional and super feminine. If not, we're actually encouraged to not be, especially when you look at like rap music and how it like encourages women to be just as promiscuous as their male counterpart or chase after money in the same way that males are encouraged to do in rap music or just in society as a whole. And it kind of does impede, I think, on our ability to be like soft and feminine. But anyway, going back to that day when that revelation hit me while listening to Taylor Swift's new album, I had a thought. I was like, God, I don't want to be like this. Like I said before, I prided myself on being emotionally sturdy or not being led by my emotion. And I think in that moment, I realized it was a defense mechanism that I had kind of grown over time, because if I'm like not led by my emotion, then people are not able to take advantage of my emotional vulnerability. And I realized, I'm like, if I want to enter into a serious romantic relationship, I cannot be like that. I need to be able to like kind of let loose, and not to say like be all emotionally volatile, but be okay with one demanding that my boyfriend or fiance or husband act a certain way and cater to my emotion. Like I want my emotions to matter to him, but if I'm going to ask for it to matter to him, it has to matter to me, and I have to be okay with that. So I was like, God, I don't want to be like this anymore. I don't want to be like emotionally stale. I don't want to like use emotional intelligence as this way to excuse myself from emotional vulnerability. I'm like, I want to be, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'm like, I want to be a little emotionally volatile. I want to be a girly pop. I want to like be feminine, and I want to be able to relate to Taylor Swift's music. I know that sounds absurd, but I really hope that I'm making a point here. But anyway, in that moment, I was like, God, like, give me a heart of flesh, because it talks about this in the scripture that God is going to give you a heart of flesh, not a heart of stone. I think the scripture says. And what that meant for me was like I wanted a heart that was softer. Like that's, I feel like, where that begins for me. I was like, I have to have a heart that's a little bit more softer, a little bit more feminine, and a little bit more just like easy. So I was like, God, where do I start with this? Like, what can I do in the immediate to kind of start that unraveling of this emotional, sturdiness and like resilience that I prided myself on, and I no longer want to pride myself on it. And that's another thing. Speaking of like emotionally resilient, I remember I had a boyfriend like way back when, and he one time or maybe a couple of times described me as a strong black woman. And I remember even in that moment, I was like, don't call me that. Like, I don't want to be a strong black woman. And I feel like a lot of black women pride themselves on that term of saying, I'm a strong black woman, an independent. No, sir. No, ma'am. I don't want to be strong. Because if for something to be strong, it means it has to endure a lot. I don't want to be enduring anything. I want an easy life. But anyway, going back to me and my whole like transformation, not transformation, that's so dramatic, but that process that I was going through at the moment, I was like, God, what can I do right now to kind of like ease my way into being, a little bit more softer, a little bit more feminine, a little bit more like emotional, and being comfortable with my emotions. And God was like, the first thing that you need to do is slow down, which seems easy, but it's not. Like, God was like, you do a lot very fast. You don't really take your time, even when you're walking. And this is, again, me being a New Yorker. We're used to just getting to where we got to go as soon as possible. And God was like, even with your driving, you do too much. You go too fast. So that, having that in mind, moving forward, when I was like on the road here, when I was driving, whether that's getting to work or just going somewhere, whatever, I had to remind myself, like, LaShawn, slow down. Like, let people get in front of you. You're not gonna die. You do not need to be so aggressive when you're driving. God was like, you gotta peel back that aggressive nature that you have. And even doing that, like literally when I was driving, I would allow people to get in front of me. I would go for the middle lane or even the right lane instead of opting for the fast lane, going 100 miles an hour for no reason. And even when someone did something to me in the road, whether that's cutting me off or going way too fast for my comfort or driving like very erratically, I would usually get very upset. Like, my road rage was a real problem. Like, ask my best friend, because she used to be on the phone with me while I was driving, and she always used to be like, girl, you need to take a chill pill on the road. But like, going through that process of slowing down, I didn't react so angrily when people was doing dumb stuff on the road. Like, granted, I still have moments where I say things that I probably shouldn't say in my car when people are driving nuts, but I made a conscious effort to slow down and to take my time and just like relax and learn to just like, take a chill pill on the road. And another area where God was like, you need to learn how to slow down, was when I was making my breakfast in the morning, or just when I'm cooking in general. Like, sometimes with me, where I have an idea of something I want to make, or I'm really excited for a dish, I'm in the kitchen going a million miles an hour. I do not know why. Maybe it's because I'm always like late and I always have to rush. I think that's probably why. But I even like times where I literally had no time restraint. Like, you will see me in the kitchen, like turning around, just like opening this drawer and putting this on the stove. And I don't know why I used to be like that, but God was like, you got to take your time in the kitchen, sis. So I learned to just slow down, take my time, let my food cook, actually obey the time recommendations in a recipe, like just little things like that. And I noticed over time, with me slowing down, I became a lot softer even in like my relationship with my friends, I became a better listener because I wasn't always focused on like getting my words out, because I learned to just slow down and embrace life in general. And I am a lot more, and there's been other things that's happened between like now and then that really I think has worked on me. I am a lot more comfortable with my emotions. I cry more. I'm okay with it, demanding that people respect my emotions in my personal relationship. That's friendships and in my romantic relationship, where I'm like, this upsets me and I'm going to show you that I'm upset. I'm not going to hide this as a way to protect myself or make you think that like you don't have to like think about my emotions. And kind of going back to why I felt like that emotional resilience was a defense mechanism, it was because I struggle sometimes with rejections or feeling that I'm like there's a word that I'm looking for, not dispensable, basically that like I'm not needed in some of my personal relationships. And I think as a way to prevent people from walking out of my life, I held back on my emotion, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to upset you, because then you would stop being my friends or my friend, or you would break up with me, or maybe you just get tired of me, so I'm not going to show you that I'm upset. When now it's just like, no, I can be upset. And if someone chooses to walk out of my life because my emotions are too much for them, then that's fine. And like, I'm okay with that, you know? And that has really been a blessing, because right now I am in a romantic relationship and I feel like I'm able to really enjoy it more than I think I would have before, because I'm like, I'm fully like myself in a lot of ways. I don't hide this part of me from him. And another point that just came to my mind, going back to the black girlhood versus white girlhood. I feel like a lot of the reasons why black women are not as emotionally soft as white women is because femininity can only exist within I think the protection of masculinity. And I feel like a lot of problems, in the black community stems from the lack of masculinity that exists, or really like masculinity with integrity that cares to protect femininity. I feel like black men, I've seen it online and I've seen it in my life, do not protect black women or respect black women in the same way other people do in other races. Now, I'm not going to go into that as much. It's just something I've noticed that I feel like impacts the way black women present themselves when it comes to their femininity, because the men around them don't provide that protection that femininity requires to thrive, But anyway, I think that's my last point. Now, I definitely feel that like this is not an issue for me in the same way that it was before. I still very much am myself in respect, in a way that like, how can I say this? I'm still not super emotionally volatile. I still get really annoyed with people who are overly emotional, because I feel like whether that's a male or a female, a black woman or a white woman, it's just annoying in general. I do think that you have to be careful not to be led by your emotion and really check yourself in that way. And then there's something that I'm still working on. Like, I can get upset at like smallest things. I think maybe I have kind of like done too much in that area. But anyway, it's still a work in progress, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I think that's the end of this. I hope this was helpful. This was a lot of ranting. I'm gonna have a lot to edit, which is fine, I think. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, thank you again. This is still going to be on my main channel for now, but eventually, probably within like the next couple of days or so, or maybe the next week or so, I'm going to transition this over to its own channel where it can kind of grow to be its own thing, because I feel like this is a what? I lost my train of thought in the middle of it. This, I think, is just going to be whatever God wants it to be. Thank you for watching my channel. If you enjoy it, hit that like button, subscribe, throw something in the comment section, and hit that notification bell so that when I upload again, you could be notified. Thank you.